Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Hello, welcome everyone to the Learners Show, broadcasting live to you today from the Phoenix Business RadioX studios here in Tempe, Arizona. I'm your host, Deborah Hildebrand.
And I'm your co-host, producer, Lauren Jenny.
And we are here to celebrate women in Agile. Okay, so one of the passions I have is to help young girls who want to have a career in STEM. So this show is a big part of how we get there, because as we highlight women who are doing amazing things in Agile, we create role models for young women to look up to and emulate. So the first thing I want to do is take a moment to thank our sponsor, Learn Agile. We provide Agile and Scaled Agile certification courses, professional learning courses, and coaching. So you can find out more at learnagile.com. That's LURN agile.com. So we're really excited today to welcome Emily Harshman, CEO of Agility Consulting International, and Sandhya Sridharan, founder and enterprise agile coach for Green Elephant LLC. Thank you, Emily and Sandhya, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah, Lauren, and I'm Emily. Excited to be here, actually.
Yes, thank you very much. So, Emily, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, like your background and your company to the viewers?
Absolutely. So I like to say that my career in Agile started more than a decade ago at this point, and I started where most people start. So we're going to do this Agile thing. Go ahead and do it. We're going to send you to a 2-day class. We're going to go ahead and look on YouTube. I don't think YouTube was as popular 10 years ago, but go and find out where go look it up and just do it. And so I had to experience what everyone experiences when they start going through transformation. And I didn't get as much training and so I just kind of learned the hard way a lot of things. And I thought after a couple of years, I thought I could help people do this better. And so that's really where I come from, because prior to that, I was in finance. And if anyone remembers finance more than 10 years ago, it wasn't the greatest place to be. So at any rate, so I've been in 9 different industries at this point, over a decade. And I really love it because you can apply Agile anywhere. So I started out as a small shop. I've grown bigger. And in fact, the next month, we're going to go gold SBCT, going to nominate like at least 2 or 3 more SBCTs in the next year, going complete federal. The world is just opening up, and it's because of this one reason why, because I have passion about, I'm not just someone who runs a company. I'm here to help everybody. I'm here to, you need help with this. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And teaching people to fish. So many times in the Agile community, I can't tell you how many times I've been in conversations with customers. I train as well. I take some of my classes on. I'm not just someone who passes things off to people. And so when I have these conversations, they have these, it's just really interesting to talk through it with these people, because they're confused. They want to go a certain direction. They don't know how. They haven't heard of, even just with a safe curriculum, there's open space agility. There's so many different things you can tack on to everything to make your life easier. So that's sort of the play space that I live in, is how can I make this more fun? Like currently I'm teaching a POPM class for fun. Yes, I said that. And they want to know more about LPM and APM, lean portfolio management, agile product management. I'm bringing in participatory budgeting. They want to know about it. It's just fun for me. I'm a big geek. So this is always my most favorite tidbit I know. So they named the Agile Manifesto in 2001. What was the runner-up? What was the runner-up name? Adaptive.
Sandhya, do you know?
No.
Adaptive. It was 2 or 3 votes shy of being the Adaptive Manifesto.
Oh my gosh.
The whole point of this is to be adaptive.
Yeah.
So business agility is huge right now, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So let's take that concept. People have been doing this for years. I've done it in marketing. I've done it in finance. You don't have to do, Agile's not just software development. They just now have been tagging the term and it's become a buzzword. So I mean, I could talk about this stuff all day, but I just know that this really matters. And part of, I love working with Scaled Agile. I love working with large scale Scrum. I love working with Nexus. I was at the Department of Education last year next to the CNN building. They jokingly said, we try to not be on CNN. I thought that was pretty funny. But so they're like, we try not to have to be on that network just because it just gets, if you're on the news, it's not usually good. But they're still using rational unified process, and they still use macro type access from the 80s. Agile's been around 80 years. So anyone that thinks this is new or this is up and coming, it's going to go away in 5 years, I have a message for you. It's not. It's going to go. So that's just kind of a little bit about me. I really do think, though, that being agile beyond that adaptiveness on all the layers is where we need to go with this. Because that's the missing element everywhere. Because how many times have you gone into been in part of a transformation, been in a transformation? People go, oh, well, we have the CEO up here. And you know what? I want our waterfall reports. I want my red, green, yellow. And have you ever asked people what red, green, and yellow really mean? You should ask that question if you haven't. But anyway, and then all of your IT teams, you should do that agile thing. And so that's the missing piece. Everyone has to be adaptable, not just the IT people. So that's my perspective.
That's great. Thank you so much, Emily, for that. And Sandhya, same question. Where did you get to where you are today, your journey, your background, and all about your company? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I think all the Agile stories, the beginnings are very similar. I think I went through the same hardship that Emily went through. One day I was told I'm going to be a Scrum Master, no idea what that was, but then kind of trusted. I went through this whole scenario of denial, the whole 9 yards of saying, I don't like it, I like it, I love it. So I went through the entire 9 yards, and then I started liking it. And then on my next role, I went in as a Scrum Master for a new pilot project. That's where I learned how much of my knowledge I'm able to impart to the other team members and how I'm able to make things fun for them. And, this notion, like Emily was talking about, they want waterfall-like reports, but they want us to do Agile. So this is what I want to debunk. It's like, you can't do both, right? And Agile is something new, and it's going to change, it's going to go away. That's not going to happen. The reason is because the world is changing. In the world that we are there, it's so volatile, it's changing so much. And the technology, it's like revolutionized things in the past few years, especially after Apple came in. There's product after product. If you don't have that business agility, if you don't have that mindset, you're not going to, be there. Look what happened to BlackBerry. Look what happened to Kodak. You have to be adaptive. Thank you, Emily, for that word again. You have to be adaptive. It is adaptive manifesto. So you have to be agile. You have to be adaptive. And the way I come in is like, I think my specialization or my passion, I shouldn't say specialization, my passion is mainly around making things happen, how to make the team successful. Once you make the team successful and high performing, I can guarantee you they're going to give you the best products or the best software development. And to add to what Emily said, when you're doing a transformation, it is just not software products. It's just not like, I'm just going to do this particular project and my entire organization is still going to remain the way it was 50 years ago. That's not going to work because it's a transformation. The whole thing needs to get transformed. So that's where I think my passion comes in. Very similar to both Deborah and Emily here, I'm also into SAFE. I'm not a member yet, but I work with a Gold SPCT member. So I'm an SAFE SPC co-trainer. That basically means I'm a step shy of being SPCT candidate. So I'm hoping in this year or next year, I get to that position. And I also, I'm an IC Agile accredited trainer. And there I focus mainly on coaching enterprise Agile coaches and also coaching Agile transitions because we are at the cusp of the change. where organizations are changing, whether people like it or not. Things are happening, and they need to be moved in the right way. They need to be directed and coached. They all know that they need to go to this destination, but we are here to guide them to get them there. That's what I think. Yeah, and again, like she said, like I have a very small company, and we are into training and coaching and enterprise agile transformation, but not yet gold, Emily.
Yeah, it's just amazing the opportunities that come up, because you meet these people after, and then I know Deborah knows this, after being in the market for so long, it's just like, it just naturally happens. You naturally grow. Hey, can I teach for you? Hey, can you help us? Hey, after a while, it's all search engine optimization. It's organic.
It's all organic.
It's all organic. And the other big piece, and I think that people really, when we talk about business agility, this is such a hot topic. It isn't just reporting when it comes to agility. It's lean portfolio management.
Yep.
This is like my biggest participatory budgeting. So let's think about this: square peg, round hole. Agile teams are product based. If you have upper management that's waterfall, they're project based. Their budget's based on projects. When that project is done, where does the money go? Where does the support for that product go? It clashes all the time. And then there's going to be an annual budget. It doesn't work. So this is why you fund value streams. This is why you have participatory budgeting. This is why you include people that give you advice, and you look at it more than once a year.
Yep, absolutely. It's everything.
Yeah, it's taught.
Yeah, I agree, Emily. Like I tell my students every time, this is probably the biggest thing that you want to learn and pay attention to is the value stream budgeting. I mean, that's the biggest change, but it is the best thing you can implement. So yeah, it's huge. I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny because it gets everyone having to speak the same language. No, I repeat that for anyone. Everyone has to speak the same language. Marketing, finance, C-suite, APMO, LACE. I don't care where you are in the organization. We all need to talk value streams. We all need to talk business value. We all need to talk OKRs, KPIs type things that are going to measure where we're at. Because otherwise, what's the value in what you're doing? Mm-hmm. The whole point of this is agile delivery, isn't it?
It is value delivery.
Yeah. We're not trying to see if the velocity is going to increase 20%. Who cares? Deliver anything?
I agree.
The issue is they still think if you just, transform the teams into agile, somehow magically everything gets transformed. But flash news, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and that's why I think this. I was talking with Richard Nasser. He coordinates all the content for lean portfolio management last week, and I'm telling you, there's a really good book I'm reading, Zone to Win. And you know what he said? He said, I really like this book. He said, I like some of these concepts. I think I'm going to start adding them to the framework. You want to get ahead? Read Zone to Win. I am. That's part of running a company like this. And I'm sure Sadi has the same thing. Is like, you have to constantly be learning. I mean, Deborah, how often are you constantly reading the new thing or the concept? Mm-hmm. The learning doesn't stop.
It's a part of the continuous learning culture. We have to keep learning.
Yeah.
Especially in the world of modernization, like whatever we're doing, transformation, modernization, with the invention of digital DevOps and digital transformation. Every day there is a new thing that's coming in. Like 2 weeks, you don't look at it, and then there's like something new. So,
and the next biggest thing on top of that is DevOps. Really,
yeah,
huge.
DevSecOps,
very huge. Yep. DevOps is huge.
I mean, think about January, February. I was lucky enough to be in Paris 2 weeks before France got locked down.
Lucky.
I'm so happy I went to Paris. It was freezing, but I loved every minute of the cold. But when COVID happened, what happened? Everything shut down and had to go adaptive. If you aren't adaptive, those companies struggle.
Oh, yes.
And I even remember, okay, so February, everyone basically, all my clients and all my employees' clients were in the middle of PI planning, whatever, or PI in the middle of their program increment. And in the middle of it, they had to completely pivot because everyone went online.
Mm-hmm.
All my hardware friends made a lot of money because no one was ready for it. And to this day, they're like, oh, got the next 2 years of my kids' college fund funded because of this, that we aren't ready. And you have to stay competitive and you have to be ready for these big changes. So how do you do that? Right. And this is where we get to competitiveness in product and where Agile comes in, I think. Because when you think about Agile, a product life cycle has shortened in the last 10 years. By how much has it shortened? Guesses?
I'm saying quarter. 4
times. It's gotten 4 times shorter. If you want to be competitive and if you want to be able to change at the on a dime, you have to use Agile. And I think that, I've been with so many different organizations and worked with so many different organizations. My company's worked with so many different organizations. It's all different. And let me tell you, the more regulated it is, the more you hear what? We can't do this.
Yep.
We're in a regulated industry. What do you say to that?
Oh, I hear that every time I talk to somebody.
I can do it.
You can do it.
And it's so funny. Because I can tell you that it takes longer. In the federal government, it takes longer to do it. In regulated industries, It takes longer. There are some government agencies I work with that I'm not even going to tell you because you would be shocked how that they function. Some of them code in production. I don't know. I can't explain.
I'm not shocked by that. I've been in public sector for 20 years, Emily. Not shocked. Not shocked.
Scary.
I know.
They do Agile and they still have a planning sprint. They still have a UAT sprint. And when I went in, I had the shock of my life. I'm like, no, this is not right. It's like, no, the contract is done. That's it. Now, can we do safe over it? And I'm like, yeah, we can. How do you want that? That's exactly what we're doing right now. So it takes a lot to change the mindset. It takes really a lot, especially at the government sector. We see this time and again. And then the companies that work with government sectors like ours, like small businesses, we have to get our ISO compliance done. We have to do work for the audit for the government. They also get audited based on what we submit to them. So we end up with, I know there's this thing said, Agile equals no documentation, but I'm like, Agile means more documentation sometimes, especially in the government sector, because we do Agile documentation and we do additional documentation as well because of compliance and other sectors and other issues that we have to take care of.
And I think it's really important for, women like us to really voice Agile coaching and Agile transformation, because there are a lot of people out there that go into organizations and we clean up after them. I'm sure we can all have more stories about this. They go in and they say they're coaches and they just tell them, here's the book. Versus if you're going to be an Agile coach, you need experience. You need to listen. You need to go in and understand the culture. You need to work on the mindset. You need to teach them to fish.
Absolutely.
Your job is to coach yourself out of a job. And so I've never understood, there's a lot of program managers that have 15 years of experience that now have 15 years of Agile coaching experience magically. And it's not the same thing. So my point is that we really need to emphasize what coaching does mean, right? And what does coaching mean to you guys?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sandhya. What is meant by an Agile coach and why does an organization need one? I think it's a good question.
So for me, an Agile coach is basically someone who can come in, who can train the teams on how to do things. But I'm talking about team level. Let's come to the enterprise level later. Who comes and tells the team, hey, this is how things need to be done. this is what your organization playbook states, and this is how we are going to do things. But it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there by giving them a playbook, telling them this is how you do. But it is their responsibility to be with their teams, to make sure they're doing it the right way. If they're going to make some tweaks, let it be. Let them go. Let them do what works for them as long as the majority of it matches with what the organization wants. And once they've started performing well, now you got to back off and see how they're performing. Sometimes, if you're too close to the problem, I personally feel that you cannot pinpoint what the problem is. You need a coach to stand back and observe, see what is happening. Kind of like what a basketball coach or a soccer coach does, right? Those people, they know what to do. They are the best at what they're doing, but they still need coaches because they need somebody to tell them, hey, something here needs to be tweaked so that you can do better. So they have to, like what Emily just said, they have to tell them how to do better, how to excel. And this has to happen continuously. It's not like for a month I have a coach and then the coach is gone, right? And like what Emily said, the coach should not be like, just because the HR changed your title from a manager to a coach, you're a coach today. You don't automatically transfer. But now I think a lot of organizations have these coaching techniques. ICF has one, IC Agile has a couple of them. It is good for you. If you're a new coach, it's good for you to go to these classes and understand what is happening, right? When I became a coach, I did not have any of these things. I learned the hard way. So now there is opportunity, right? So I'm going to help others and I'm encouraging people internally. If you like doing it, come on, speak up. You can continue to be the coach of it. You don't have to be a scrum. A scrum master can be the coach of the team too. So they can also guide the team. So that's how I see what a team level coach should. Of course, enterprise coach is a totally different ball game because they need to look at the organization as a whole, which is not just business and IT. They need to look at what Emily was just talking about, value stream. They need to look at the portfolio level. They need to look at multiple levels. Right now, we're all in silos. I don't know when that's going to change, but I'm hoping that's changing slowly. But when that changes, I'm hoping that there is great change. And enterprise agile coaches are in more demand because they need to identify what are the issues across organizations. I'm not saying they're filled with issues, but identify issues or areas where they can better themselves. So that's where I see enterprise agile coaches coming in.
And there is a big difference between enterprise and team coaching.
There is.
Difference. Because, and the biggest thing is, whether you're an enterprise or team, it's asking the questions to get people to the answers.
Mm-hmm.
If you give someone the answer, they're not going to be able to ever get to it themselves again. If you talk them through the logic to it and it's their idea, anyone that's married knows that if you can make it their idea, they're more likely to do it. Oh, let's go. Yeah, that's a great idea. Where'd you come up with that? You want to make it. It's all this is psychology. The one thing I think that's really missing out of transformations when you talk at enterprise level is organizational change management plans. How are people planning to change? Oh, we're just going to start doing this differently. Okay, you just caused chaos because there's now change fatigue of how we're going to deal with this. You have to address the change fatigue as much as what should we be doing?
Mm-hmm.
And people need to understand it. So it depends on your framework too, right? So SAFe has a roadmap and an implementation. Large scale Scrum does 50 people by 50 people. Because they say you can only change 50 people at a time. Who's right? I don't know. Tell me off the organization.
Right. It's all about the organization. Right. Exactly.
And so a lot of times, people get stuck on that. And I think it's just really important. If you're interviewing Agile coaches to figure out who'd come in your organization, ask them about their war stories. I have hundreds of them. I feel like just pull where I need to at the moment that I need it. But it's the war stories. It's how did you make this work in a difficult situation? I've been in some of the most regulated places, I feel like, on the planet, and they were still able to do it and do it successfully.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And it just took a lot of negotiation with quality analysis, We talk about the FDA. They have a whole different set of what okay and successful is. And it has nothing to do with business value. It has everything to do with study data. A lot of people go to the SAFe model for one reason, for several reasons. But one is because I basically think it's laid out good 80 plus years of quality practices for, that all across all industries, and put it in a really great picture and organized it. Because the Scrum Guide doesn't tell you how to get 5,000 people to all organize and trace up.
You're right.
So then what do you do? So I think that's where a lot of people are really kind of learning on that level too. I don't know. I firmly believe that people also underestimate Kanban. I think people don't know Kanban as well as they should.
I just want to say here, when you were talking about that change in organization of 5,000 people, I always tell this thing, like, I always have an anecdote for this, which is basically organizations are caterpillars. They're moving slowly. They're all working well. And then they spin themselves into a cocoon for the transformation into a butterfly. And that cocoon is an unknown period. And that's why, like, your culture is changing. You're crawling, but you're going to fly now. People are scared. People are like, okay, what is going to happen? Am I going to change the way? I'm not going to crawl anymore. How can I fly? I'm not licensed to fly. So all these questions come in and they get confused. And that's when the rumor flies, like 50% is going to be laid off. And everybody is scared. And I think that's where our role also comes in and says, like, calm down. Nothing is going to happen. You have what you have. And once you become a butterfly, and when you come out and start flying in colors, so, and then what you're thinking is, that wasn't so hard after all. But that change, whatever that cocoon duration might be, 6 months, a year, at least a year and a half, but that change is where all the issue happens between the company. Are we going in the right direction? Because we have not seen success yet. So that's one thing I wanted to tell you when you said about organizational change and everything. I always use this anecdote. Of course, you're going to start flying. You're scared.
Oh, yeah. And how do you measure success?
Oh, yeah. How do you measure success? Not the only way to measure success.
I know my favorites are when upper management says, so I was I was working with an organization, and so they brought me in at like they just had started about 3 months ago and realized, oh, we can't do this. They came up with like 5 stages of when it's okay to start scaling your teams. And I said, is there anywhere that says you have to have a working agreement? They said, no, what's that? And I was like, that's step 1. So, and then they started putting metrics on each one of these things. And how often do people go to story points? They use story points to beat teams up. Mm-hmm. And then teams game it. I can't tell you how often I hear teams, and I know this will just really annoy some people on the call, but the component train I was talking to, it was a component train of engineers that blocked the whole organization. Really awesome strategy. Anyway, I was talking with them, and they had been so beaten up with story points that at the end of every sprint on each one of the teams on the train, if they had like 3 points left, they would just change the story, close that one, and create a new one with the acceptance criteria they didn't get done because they got beaten up. And then they were using that data to forecast. It was like,
I have seen like where directors would come to me and say, the velocity, it's not going up. Why is it stagnant all of a sudden? I'm like, because there are still the same amount of people and only so many hours in a day that they can work. That's why the velocity at one stage becomes stagnant. They're like, no, it's a job. It has to keep going up. I'm like, no, that doesn't happen. So what teams started doing was started inflating the numbers.
So this sounds so familiar, and this happens everywhere with estimating. So what do you guys? I mean, you guys work with the executive level. How do you coach them out of this and help their teams just provide value rather than trying to game the numbers?
I basically tell them if you take a program, right? What is when would you consider this program to be successful? They might have like certain guidelines, right? So like, if we have met these, then we are successful. Forget the points. The points are just like an estimation. It's like a tool to help them assess how long it takes or how big or how complex the story is. It shouldn't be a success factor. You should talk about what are the key things that makes a program successful. If we have attained that for the product, then we are successful. Has it gone to the market? Are the people using it? Have your customers gained value out of it? Have you gotten your ROI out of it? That's it. That's all needs to matter. You don't have to go deep in. It doesn't matter if it's 3 points or 2 points. You don't have to grill them for that. Your success is at a different level. That's how you should see it. But somehow I think the middle management loses track of it.
I really love, there's an article that it talks about like that's 30 things that if you're in middle level management, what you should do. Because that's always a question when me or any of my people go in. It's like, I'm mid-level management. I'm not sitting with the team. I now have to write a performance report on someone for bonuses this year. How do I do that? And these questions of, I can't be with the team. How do I know what's going on? And there's a whole list of things that as a manager, you can do to help support your team. And that's what you need to be doing. And whatever they need, if you can help them grow in their career, if they need some more training on Pega, maybe they're going to do more AI work, whatever it is, help them get there. There's one large scale Scrum thing I really like that they did. They made HR job descriptions objective, not subjective. So if you're going to move from developer 1 to 2, if you want to be developer 2, you need to have 3 skills. If you're going to move to developer 3, you need to have 4 skills. So it's more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's more, it's less what you think of that person or their performance. It's more static. Like if I want to move up, I know I have to have this. I can check the box, then I can move up.
It's more based on competency rather than how many points they've done in a week. Yeah.
I remember I learned that lesson really young whenever I was working full time for other people, because the first time I made this really amazing goal, right? I did this really amazing thing and I met it. So I got a meets. So the next year I put my goals as really simple. And then I just blew them out of the water because I knew I would. And then I got an exceeds. So my point in saying all this is that you really, when you start looking and thinking about success factors and things like that, if you can start taking less of the focus on mid-level management, focus on the teams and making it so people have an idea of, if I want to move up, I know what competencies I know I need to add, and then I can move up. And so large scale Scrum really takes it to like 80 to 100 people per one manager because it's easy. So that's changing to Agile HR in a sense.
Right.
So Agile's affecting everything in this world. And so eventually it's kind of like if everyone in your house is eating salmon and you're the only one eating pizza, eventually you're going to eat what they are. So I don't know. That's kind of my two thoughts on that. But the other thing I think that really people have a misconception of is that they want to see results right away.
Oh, yeah.
How often do you see that, right? It's 6 months. Why aren't they getting it? It gets a phone straight here.
They need to wait for the butterfly to fly out.
Yeah. And so when you start talking about success, you have to really go back to the burning platform. Why are people doing this? Why are you going Agile? I asked a customer once that, and he said, well, because with some of our contractors, we're using Agile.
Oh,
they want to use SAFe, so that's why we're using it. Not because they want to, not because there's any purpose for it. It's because someone else wanted to use it. They were going to hire to do work.
Mm-hmm. And Lauren, did you have a question?
Yeah. So I just wanted to ask, I guess both of you too. So what's like the first thing you do when a new client asks you to help them with a transformation? How is it that different from what they expected,
They always tell me that we are already agile, right? So we just have like 10% that's not agile. We just needs to transform. All we need is some training to get onto SAFe. I'm like, okay, but can I talk to your team? No, all we need is training. But when we talk to the team, when we do our basic agility assessment, it's totally different. And you find like teams that know what they are doing, and you find teams who are doing the ceremonies, but that's it. They do the ceremonies, but they're not agile. They're still waterfall. And there are different levels. And we are like, we need to assess the agility of the company. We need to assess the agility of the teams to know what kind of training your organization needs. I cannot go give a POPM to everybody. It doesn't even make sense just because somebody wanted me to do it. So of course, I would make a lot of money with that, but that's about it, but nothing else. So it's very important. They would say training, but I would tell them, this is what I found out, and this is what we need to do. And I would always like to create a roadmap and give it to them. What we found, similar business analysis principle, right? Current state, future state. I know what your future state is. You already told me, but I need to assess your current state to know what I'm changing. So simple principle. So this is what I would tell them. Mostly they don't like it, but then they turn around and come.
Most of them will start out with training, right? They'll think that they just need training.
Lunch and learn. How about lunch and learns? How about like 2 hours session? Like I can do everything. Yeah. But that's not going to help them. Coming to a 1-hour Scrum Master training is not equivalent to a 2-day training, or it's not equivalent to a coach being with you during your ceremonies, helping you and your team what to do. So there are 3 different things. So if you want just a 101, there's YouTube. So.
Yeah, it's so when you know, a lot of times too, they do want that training. And the most successful times I've personally had transformations was when I had the time to do the assessment before in the trainings, because then I understood the organization. I understood their issues, their culture. And that's what make public training so interesting, is because you're going in, you're like, it could be people from 4 different industries. And you have to be able to treat all of them the same.
And public training is very interesting because you don't know what kind of issues they bring up, and like everyone is different. So I love answering those questions.
Yeah, and I think, and that's what the interesting part about training is. Yes, you get certifications, and I think that's fantastic. But more importantly, adult learning theory. Can you apply what you learn? Do you really understand it? Because if you can apply it, you get it.
Yep.
And so part of my company has like a 90% passing ratio and a 4.7 out of 5 feedback ratio across all my classes and my instructors, because the focus is on how can you apply it? You're here for 2-3 days with us. What can you do with this information to make your life easier? Even when, I teach, and then other people I know teach Kanban. And so I was in Maryland and I was teaching Kanban with T.R. Price, I think it was. And I go back the next week. One guy says, who is one of the most skeptical guys in the classes, you never know. He said, you know what? I started doing a personal Kanban and I'm starting to affect the rest of my team. And now they're thinking in a Kanban mindset.
That's awesome.
You just don't know what impact you're going to have until you say, what are you going to do today to make a difference with this information?
So this is a question that probably comes up. How will they know if Agile will work for their organization? Do you ever get that question?
It's a good question. I like that one.
It is a really good question. How will I know if Agile will work? And so, first of all, I'm going to go back to the burning platform. What is it about Agile that you are trying to get out of it? Mm-hmm. One of the organizations that I've worked with in the past, they had like $1 million in fines from a client because they used waterfall, and what they ended up producing broke several business regulations. So they didn't deliver on time. So it cost them a lot of money. So they went Agile. That's their burning platform. So if you don't have a strong burning platform, you may not be as successful because you're not as motivated.
Yeah.
And so my question, so if you have a really strong platform and you're willing to be adaptable at all levels, do you hear me? At all levels, not just the team level, all levels, then you have a shot at it. But if you're just doing it because the contractors you're hiring want to use it, or you just heard it's a buzzword and you want quicker delivery, there's a learning curve. It doesn't happen overnight. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Sandhya, I'm wondering like what you think about it.
Like pretty much what Emily thinks, because people are always trying to get out of Agile, primarily because they think they're going to get overworked. I don't know how many of you, Deborah and Emily, I'm sure you must have heard it on YouTube that Agile equals more work. That means overtime. So that is a wrong misconception. And I'm like, why would you think that way? Because when I was in my Agile project, I would basically make sure the team is not overworking. It's 5:00, you can go home. Unless there is a production that happens at 8 p.m. in the evening where you have to deploy something, you don't have to overwork. And I always tell them, and I used to get comparisons when I was a Scrum Master. How come the other project is doing more? I'm like, it's all about planning. It's all about taking the work that the team can finish and giving quality work, because we are not dumping something over to testing or to UAT without testing it. We are doing the work and it's not coming back to us as a defect time and again. We're doing the work right and sending it across. We're taking the time to finish. So that needs to happen. So I think that is the fear that is there. Like there's a stigma attached everywhere saying Agile equals more work, Agile equals extra hours, Agile equals points, and it's all confusing. I think we need to get away from that. It's kind of old at this point of time. It's no longer extra work. Just like how they say Agile is only for software developers. I'm hearing that time and again. We are not software developers, we are engineers. I'm like, it's okay. We can apply it everywhere.
Yeah, another one of those misconceptions that are Scrum Masters or project managers.
Mm-hmm.
They're not the same thing, for the record. They're very different. And not all project managers can become Scrum Masters. Some can, some can't make the leap. I know there was a Scrum Master I knew, or a project manager I knew, that went to release train engineer and then was starting to tell their teams to document everything. Like they were documenting their stand-ups. They were documenting their backlog refinement sessions and who voted what. It's like, did you miss the whole point? No, those are all not things you should do. And so this is not a project that you're managing. You have no authority. So people that have issues with being able to influence people have issues being a Scrum Master.
So the other thing I want to add here, right, with COVID happening and everybody being remote. So there is this sudden urge from all the organizations saying, okay, what did you do today? And they take it literally and they want us to document and send it out. Okay, what are the consultants doing? What are you doing? We are in a stand-up. Okay, what did you discuss in the stand-up? I'm like, I'm not going to write this in my time card. So people are getting anxious, but they need to realize that the way people have started working, there is, for me at least, there is no delineation between work hours and private hours, personal hours. It's all the same. Doesn't matter. I'm cooking, I turn back and I still chat. I still respond to emails, even if it's 6, 7, 8 in the night. So it doesn't matter. So I don't think they should be extremely overworked about the fact that people are not working hard. I think people are. So they need to give them that leeway. These are the same people whom you were working with for years or months before COVID happened. So why would they suddenly change? They still have their accountability. So I think the trust factor is something that they need to look at and maintain as well.
And that's a really hard thing. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I have something really quick to ask you, Sandhya. So
yes.
With all that being said, how do you make work fun? I mean, obviously work sometimes can be, an eye roll, right? But, how do you make it fun, especially after COVID-19, the whole transformation we've had in terms of that, what do you remember about your passion, how you bring it back in?
It is trust and collaboration. Like I always say this, if you are in a good team where people trust you, people are collaborative, and we want the project or the program to be successful, you automatically become a high-performing team and a great fun team to work with. If I'm stuck with something, Emily can help me, or you can help me, Lauren. So we are like what we are doing here. We are giving space to each other. We are all contributing to this podcast. Isn't this fun? That's exactly what I think we need to do this in the project teams or the program teams as well.
Yeah. And I think the biggest piece, and then this brings me to it's a really interesting thought I had about a lot of people say they have a team, but then when you start talking to them, it's like, oh, Deborah, she always does this. And Emily, then she always does this piece. And then Sandhya always does this piece. Are they really a team, or are they three different people doing the same things every sprint? Are you really a functioning team? And so building an actual team is different than just saying I'm a team. You could say that I'm a marathon runner, but if I only run 2 miles a day, I'm not a marathon runner. I can call myself that. So it's the idea of breaking those silos, building a high performance team. There's a whole different skill set in that, and coaching people and Scrum Masters to build those teams is a whole different skill set.
Yep.
But making it fun. I love RetroMat. Have you heard? So RetroMat is like 140 ways to do a retrospective. It has all kinds of activities. Yeah. I mean, I do RetroMat. I do all kinds of activities when I have to do any sort of inspect and adapt or anything, and I have to facilitate. I've done we're doing a movie review. Was this a horror show or is this a comedy? What was the turning point? I make it fun, because if you walk into any one of my meetings, it will be different every time. If there's something something we need to talk about, hey, we'll talk about it all day, but we'll make it in the fun. I've done the trust tree with Will Ferrell. They all thought it was pretty funny.
But that's exactly what's going to break the ice and make people comfortable. You can give a bad review to a movie, not to your sprint. No, of course not. I've had people come and tell me oh, why does this happen? Oh, that's because you sent a mail saying we have to do it. Or can we do it? Yes, my question was, can we do it? Not do it. So you can always come up to me and say we cannot do it. Or, so they were like, are you sure we can come up to you? I'm like, of course, you're that's why I'm here. I'm here to help you. And the next time they came in and said, okay, I don't think we can accommodate it. I'm like, is that all? Okay, fine. So we sent an email to the product owner, explained why we cannot accommodate in the middle of a sprint, which always happens. And that was as simple as that. And my team came up to me and said, I cannot believe you were okay with it. I'm like, why? Because traditional PMs don't let us do this. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not your traditional PM then.
You're not a PM at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're about 10 minutes away from the hour. So I wanted to take a little bit of time to get some advice out of you ladies for those young women out there who are looking to get into a career in Agile. So Lauren, take it away.
Okay, so Sandhya, if I was graduating from college, which I will be within, less than a year, would you recommend going straight to work, or should I continue my education and get my master's? What is, important? And I know that's the golden question of college students is should I take the chance and, continue on my education, or is it more valuable to me in my career to continue on, get that hands-on work?
Okay. So I started working, and then I did my part-time master's. So it worked out for me. But for you, I would basically ask you, Lauren, one question. Mm-hmm. What do you want to do?
Now that's a question I've been asked many times, right? And it's different, right? From when if you would have asked me freshman year to now, it would be a totally different question. Mm-hmm. So what I want to get from you is, what, not kind of what I should do, but what's a good opportunity for me? What do you see being successful with?
I'm a firm believer in a practical experience. So I would personally tell you, after your college, work more with Deborah. She's got all these amazing clients, and, you're already doing great. So work, see what is happening, dabble in a few things, see what you like. I bet you would find what you like very soon, like we all did, right? We found our calling. And once you do that, there's always time to go back and study. Of course, you've got your foundation, which is your graduate studies done. So that is good. That is very important to be successful, right? And now you're just building on it. So get your practical experience, decide on what you want to do, and then do your master's. Don't do your master's before you know what you want to do. So that way you can specialize it. That's my humble opinion.
Emily, do you have any second thoughts as well?
I would say a couple things. One, the average person has 7 careers now. So I work with a lot of World War II vets in my life. They usually had 1 career. That was in the, the 40s to the 80s or whatever. That was pretty normal. Now people have 7 careers. And so you need to be able to reinvent yourself. So what I'm saying is get some practical experience. When I interview people, one of the first questions I ask, especially if they want to be like a scrum master, they want to be a coach, tell me about some of your experience. Tell me about when you failed. We've all had those projects, right? We've all had one where it's like, we learned, okay? Mm-hmm. And you have to get your feet wet to totally understand it. And then I went back and got my master's when I was 30. And I finished, so I had my first baby, and then took my 2 weeks after he was born, I took a final. And then 3 months after he was born, a year after that, I finished my master's. So my point is, when the time is right, the time will be right. But you need to get experience, get skills, and do what you like to do. So have you read the book, The Strengths and Weakness, The Strength Finder? I'm sure Deborah knows what I'm talking about here, the Strengths and Weaknesses, the Strength Finder book. But basically what it says, find out what your strengths are. And if you try to build those up, you're going to improve. I mean, you're going to make drastic improvements in your strengths.
Right. I also think your confidence level goes up too once you find your strengths, right? And then it's the limit after that. So I think what you both have said is very valuable. And I'm very thankful you didn't say, yeah, go right into getting your master's, because that personally is not for me. I wouldn't continue on to that right away. So thank you very much for that insight.
And believe in yourself. That's the other thing I would say to you.
Yeah.
You think
especially being women too. Time after time I've heard, like in high school, believe in yourself. I know you'll get discouraged because you're a woman in STEM. You're interested in a field that's dominated by men. Don't get discouraged by that. Believe in yourself. So thank you. Thank you for reiterating that. That's a very good point. Well,
that's great. Go ahead, Lauren.
Yeah. Well, thank you both. I think we are kind of near the end, but last kind of like to wrap up that question, what about for high school students? Is there like a different kind of approach you would say? Because I mean, high school, usually traditionally you continue on and you go to college, right? But how do they need to go to be successful in Agile throughout their college career if they were to continue on?
I know some of the most successful people I know that are retired at my age. Good Lord, I should have followed their lead. I found Agile 10 years into my career, and then I haven't left it since. So for 10 years, I was doing, finance stuff. But in high school, he knew how to code. Now I know it's a man, but still, like, he knew how to code, and he would do little extra projects on the side, and he'd figure it out. So when he was in college, he did consulting. He created a website and he did consulting on the side. By the time he was out, within 2 years, he was a vice president of a company. Didn't take very long. He already had the experience. So a lot of times I think people think because they're young, that they don't have a valuable skill set. You can go to around here in Indianapolis and across the world, and there's 1150 Academy. You can go learn about cybersecurity. 300,000 jobs in the next 18 months they cannot fill because there's not enough people. Coding, all these kinds of things that you can learn over a summer and start doing projects on the side, pick up side freelance gigs, learn, get involved with teams. You don't have to have a degree to do some of this. It's good to have your education, but you don't have to.
Yeah. Sandhya, do you think you need to go to college to get into Agile?
I think, some of the best entrepreneurs we have in this country are probably college dropouts. So I'm not going to advocate that, but definitely good education, at least a high school education, is a good foundation. Like what Emily just said about, there are tons of organizations, like especially for girls and boys now, they have about coding, cybersecurity, and this is the time you can focus on something. once you grow up, you start, like what Emily said, having a family and everything. It's really tough because your focus is divided. But now I really feel that the food is taken care of, the laundry is taken care of. All you have to do is do what you focus on. Like, I wish I knew this before.
Yeah. There's also like freecodecamp.com. So if you're in high school right now and you're listening, freecodecamp.com. They teach it to you. Then you work for a non-for-profit and create something, and you have a portfolio to show people. Imagine applying to college with that.
Yeah.
You've won.
Right.
You start doing consulting on the side, you graduate, you're in a senior position. And as a woman, you could beat out, anybody pretty much.
Yeah, I agree.
But it really helps to have that background when you're coaching. So if you want to get into Agile, get some skills too. That helps.
All the experience there. All the experience.
Yeah, the technical skills and knowledge and experiences is definitely necessary to be a leader. Yeah. Okay, so I can't believe the hour is almost up and we need to start winding down. I want to thank you both so much for joining us today. It was really fun. It was great having you on the show.
Yes.
Lauren, go ahead.
So Sandhya, how can you let our audience know how we can get in touch with you? Because it's been great talking with you, and I bet you viewers want to hear more and more and more. So how can we get in touch with you after this?
LinkedIn. You can touch again. I'm always active on LinkedIn. I might not answer my phone, but I look at my LinkedIn a lot.
And Emily, you as well. How can the audience reach you?
So you can always reach out and schedule some time on the calendar. It's agilityconsultinginternational.com. Straight access to my calendar. You can schedule time on it. If you want to discuss your career, if you want to discuss, am I ready for transformation? Like, are we there yet? And a lot of times I help not just Agile careers, but general life career kind of things, especially in the business world right now with COVID and people changing. But COVID has prompted people to change. So people are all having all these conversations all the time now. Like, is this what I want to keep doing? So feel free to reach out. That's
great. I love it. They can get right on your calendar. And hey, congrats on the gold stat. That's great. That's great.
I'm excited.
Is that next month?
Yeah, October 2nd. So we're going to be that gold SPCT before. We're going to be gold and gold SPCT by December.
Wow, great. That's awesome. I love it. That's a great accomplishment. All right. So just a reminder to our listeners that although this show is live, we do record them and release them as a podcast. So please subscribe to the Learnist Show on Apple iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, or your platform of choice. You can find the links to the show on our website, thelearnist.com. That is LURNIST.com. And of course, thank you to our sponsor, Learn Agile. And visit learnagile.com to learn more about what we can do for you and your career in Agile. So that's it for now. Thanks for listening. We will be back in 1 month at 11 a.m. Arizona time. And thanks again to our special guests today. We really enjoyed having you both on the show.
Yes, thank you too very much.